6 o'clock sharp. Let me call this work session on March 25th, 2014 in session. We'll start off having invocation by Commissioner Franklin and pledge allegiance. But if I stand, gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you for another great day. God, and I pray that you touch each and every decision that this board makes, God. God, that it be a wise decision. God, give us the knowledge and encouragement. God, and I pray that you touch each and every one that's in this room, God. If they have a problem, God, that you touch them. God, if they're discouraged, that they be encouraged, God, through you. And we praise it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start off with public comments. As you know, we try to make this as informal as possible because we do not take any action tonight. This is a work session that we can have interaction between each one of us here tonight on various topics. Start off, do we have any public comments that'd like to start us off with tonight? We'll move into the first B. As you recall, last July we went into a new health program. We've been in the health program now for about approximately 9 months. So it's time for us to sort of evaluate how it's going back and forth because we will be looking by the 1st of July, evaluating, but we want to continue this health program and so forth. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Holbrook if she'll come up now. Ms. Holbrook, you was part of the committee that chose the health program, so you have a lot of knowledge about it. We open for comments and action about our health program.
We actually didn't. We didn't have a lot of input into picking the program. But that's one thing that Bobby and I and all the employees and several of the constitutional officers were concerned about is where we are and what are we going to do going forward on health insurance. We've got a lot of concerns about the broker that we now have. We've got a lot of concerns about the deductibles, the problems we have with that. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to y'all's attention and let you know that, we do have some concerns about that, and employees have some major concerns about that.
Let's talk about the deductible for a little bit. We was all under the impression when we took out this health insurance that we took it out 1st of July.
Yes, sir.
And we was under the impression the deductible would be for 1 year, $1,250.
Yes, sir.
For actually our physical year.
Yes, sir.
But we discovered that they actually did it on an annual basis starting the 1st of January, and that threw things in whirlwind, so to speak.
Right.
Because our employees had to start over with the deductible in January. As I understand it, we were assured that the deductible would be $1,250 from January through December, because that's the way they calculate it in there.
That's if we stay with the same.
I'm sorry?
Is that if we stay with the same
Well, if
broker?
we
with the same
change,
insurance company?
okay, if we change with another insurance company in our physical year, it would depend on what they give us. We would actually lose the whole year benefit of $1,250. So what I'm hearing is they would prefer if we change insurance
Again.
or renew it, make sure it's a calendar year rather than physical year. Is that the way you understand it?
Now,
I think the issue with that is our current policy ends at the end of June. So we're on a different schedule than the insurance companies apparently, Ms. Bridges. And secondly, that was not communicated to us in the group that we have, the subcommittee for insurance. Neither, I think, were you guys informed until maybe late December that the deductible started under it.
We found out it on, I believe, December 20th.
In our planning meeting is when we were notified.
We were notified that actually the deductible would start over in January.
But it actually could have been written because we don't have the health option where we can put money, the health savings account. It could have been written from July to June is what the broker now said. He just kind of dropped the ball. He took the responsibility for it and said there wasn't anything he could do about it.
Right. That's what I understand. He took the responsibility because he couldn't actually do that at that time.
But now I've talked to other brokers that said it could have been done that way. It just had to have been written up, correctly. It had to have been written up that it started July 1st and ended June 30th.
Did he give you a reason why he wrote it up that way?
He thought, the broker we have now, Pat Rising, said that he thought we all had a health spending account.
Health savings.
Health savings account.
Health savings?
Yeah. And he actually questioned Elaine quite extensively, thinking we still have one, and she informed him that we did not.
So that's.
Well, I think what it was, wasn't Billy the only one that had a health savings account? Oh, four other people, okay.
But that was an option given to us with the new plan. We didn't have an option of having a health savings account. So that was some confusion, I think. So, I mean, we just want to make sure that we have plenty of input. The employees have, I think we need some employees on the committee because they're the ones that are having a lot of concerns and a lot of questions about it. And I think we need to make sure that we have numerous brokers involved and not just one involved in selecting. Because I know I've talked to several and they can continue with the plan we have now. It doesn't have to, we don't have to stay with the same person.
What are the main concerns that you're hearing?
They just can't, I mean, I had, we had people that had scheduled, like during Christmas when it is a downtime, they had scheduled procedures because they already met their deductible. So they had surgeries and things done that they needed to have done in the first 6 months. And then all of a sudden in January, we found out that we had another $1,250 deductible. So they had
So the main thing is the deductible
yes,
that you're
I
hearing?
mean, I think all in all, the insurance plan
Okay.
is great,
Okay.
but it's just the deductibles, when we talked to them and when we had the meeting and they talked to them, they said, you've got a $1,250 deductible for the year. And this is, after that, it's 100%. So that was, they
Right.
get
We were
the
thinking
deductible
12 months
right,
rather
yeah,
than the
yeah,
year.
we were thinking
And then January 1st,
They had to
they
start
came
over.
up and they started back over with a $1,250 deductible,
Yes.
even though they might have already met
right.
the deductible
In the
they had
first
during
6
that 6
months.
months. And I'll tell you, we were all under that same
Right.
impression.
And it was a shock to everybody,
Right.
But as far as the insurance itself, are you,
They've had, we had several concerns when we had the meeting of people not being able to get their claims processed. And I think Gary probably can, some of the people over that works with the sheriff's department, and he had claims from like July, right after we first took, and he was there in the meeting. And he,
is that ironed out or is it still ongoing?
do you know if Chris ever got his?
I have not heard any more talk.
So it's been
I think it's still going on.
No, it's been taken care of.
Okay. I haven't heard anything from my folks. I think I was directing them up to the Commissioner's office, talk to Lynn because that's her expertise, and I think she was able to get things dealt with and handled, so.
And I think they had changed representatives in the meantime. He said somebody had left, so the people they were calling, the person they were calling was not a contact person anymore, so they didn't know who to contact, so we kind of got that ironed out when we had the phone meeting, so. It's just, just a lot of concerns, and we want to make sure that that y'all are aware of that. There's a lot of concern and that there's some input, and we do have some different people that we can talk to about handling that account.
Now, what I'm hearing is that the employees are pleased with it. They'd like to see us switch brokers if we can keep the same insurance coverage we got now.
I mean, I think the insurance coverage for what we have, is not bad. I thank the Lord I hadn't had to use it, but the ones that have used it, other than the problems they have with the claims, but, I mean, I think everybody pretty much has decided that's the way it's gonna be. That's what we're gonna go with, because that's what the county can afford to do. As far as that goes, the $12.50 was it sounded pretty big, especially if you make $10 an hour, $12.50 deductibles.
What was it before we switched? Being new on the board, I know
We had co-pays.
You had
Yes,
co-pay.
co-pays.
Was there a deductible on the old insurance program? I've been told as much as
Yes, but-
$2,300 or something.
No, it wasn't that much.
Well,
It was 4,500.
Yeah.
That was family.
No, that was individual. It
Yeah.
was 9,000.
I mean, it's kind of the other plan was kind of smoke and mirrors with your
Right.
co-pays and with your deductibles
But most of-
and with everything. This is kind of straightforward.
Right, you have to
So-
pay the first $12.50.
So actually,
Well, and when
that may be hard, but actually, I think that it works out better, especially if you have major claims.
Right, if you have a
Because it
major
was-
Well,
claim,
if you go to the other one, on the old one, if you go to a doctor's office visit, then go to a specialist, a month, you just spent $105, and if you do that every month, you just spent $1,260.
Right, and then you haven't met any deductible.
And you hadn't made any
That's just
deductible,
code.
and then you still got
Right.
deductible to me.
So what I'm hearing is we got pretty good coverage there.
Gary, I mean, you've had some,
But I understand what she's talking about. I had the issue with the old plan, and that, under the old plan, I paid $2,900 out of pocket for a wellness visit, just to follow up, make sure I was clear of the cancer. And I ended up paying $2,900. The insurance paid $2,000. I actually paid more than the insurance company did. The plan that we currently,
Under the old plan.
the old plan,
Right.
the plan we currently have, I think everybody likes it with the deductible. The only issue that I hear from my folks is based on the income, and everybody works to support their family. That's what we do. That's the purpose. And the cost of family coverage. They cannot support the cost of family coverage to cover their family. So if you're going into the Obamacare, and based on what you can afford at the bronze plan, which is basically $6,900 out of pocket deductible.
Yeah, 6,300. But the thing is, with that, what you're looking at, what you're not saying though, with the Obamacare, is a subsidy that if people make under 60,000, they get X amount of dollars. We just did a person the other day that all they got to pay is $29 a month, and that's it.
Don't understand if I got to that, I was going to tell you, based on the income, you get a subsidy to cover
And
the
then
cost.
it's revalued at the end of the year. But with talking about this with the county employees' families on the old plan, they were out of pocket. They paid $90,000, whereas with this one, they're at $64,800, which is a savings to the employees who have family benefits of $26,000 almost.
What is the family coverage, Elaine? $597 a month. So you figure that up for an employee making
And it
40.
was $800 on the other.
Right.
But the thing
I'm not
is, you
saying it
figure-
was a perfect plan, I'm just saying that
But it's better as far as
$597 a
out-
month times 12 months out of pocket for your employee making $25,000, you draw that back, you're just about
But that,
out of money, poverty level.
well, but the thing is, you also got to factor in those people that with families of 4 making under 44,000, their kids go on peach care. I mean, there's a lot of things that are not being brought to the table that I know a lot of them have, because a lot of the employees with families have called me.
Sure.
Well, bottom line, we had to look at options. The insurance rates were spiraling out of control. 4 years straight, we had double-digit increases, and we had co-pay increases and huge deductible increases. Comparing what we have now versus what we had, I think it's a much better plan for all parties once we get through some of these bumps in the road. and have assurance that now we're working on a 12-month cycle
Instead
where
of
when they
6
pay their
months.
$1,250,
Right.
that's it.
That's gonna be a lot easier, you know.
And I think we need to bring these other issues that y'all have brought to our attention to the table with one of the brokers and make sure we have clarity on how they're going to address those issues in the upcoming year.
We just, after us and the sheriff was there and I was there and Bobby was there and several people were there, after we spoke with the broker, we don't have a lot of confidence in the broker. We'll just lay it on the table. So I think-
Anybody that takes from our employees, you know, it puts us on the bad side right now, because they're not making what your other counties close are making. And I lost 4 in 1 or 2 weeks to Jackson County because they pay more per hour. It wasn't anything we did. It was just a fact supporting their families. And then when you take $12.50 for 6 months and then they have to pay another $12.50, that's where employees are very upset about.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is if you educate the employees, that's $3,250 less than what they got to pay out of pocket compared to the old plan.
That's not the point.
The point is
No,
what they're
no,
paying
no.
out of pocket.
Let me finish, okay?
Okay.
The point is, when you got employees making $10 an hour, and they're told July the 1st, okay, our deductible's gonna be this amount for 12 months. And then, in the end of the year, as in December, we go to a meeting, which we wasn't told anything about it. Because I think it was discussed, and maybe some of y'all said we or whatever, but the employees got blindsided because they had some of them had surgery and done what they had to do, the deductible was met. Then in a week and a half later, they got another deductible. That's not fair.
Well, I'll tell you, it is so wrong, because, and maybe, David, you might know this question. Realistically, the employees paid a year's deductible for 6 months.
Some of
Some of them.
the ones who-
Could we not go back and retro cut
We
that
asked
in
that
half because it was just for 6 months? Because that's
We asked that question, and we asked, we said, we feel, I didn't have.
at least reimburse
Yes,
half of it.
And that's what we asked, and we were told that, that would not be, they couldn't do that, it wasn't legal to do that. It would be, penalizing the employees that hadn't used it. And I said, well, I feel like
Now,
most,
by whose
that
definition
was-
of illegal?
that was the broker.
Yeah.
On the
It's not
12.
Bubba on the phone here.
And I think, and Bubba, I think, was on the phone
Our
too.
attorney
probably.
agreed with that.
Because we asked, could you not just go maybe and do half, if you can do half? And I feel like and the ladies in there, and were you in there, John? And we felt like, the employees that hadn't used it would probably sign off on something. Say, I would have been happy to.
Right.
Saying, that's fine, because, it wasn't right to the employees.
Well,
But we were told that.
It seemed like our broker is liable for this because he did not make it clear that it was only for 6 months. And if employees knew that, they would probably put off some.
Well, to the contrary, he made it clear that it was a 12-month
I
cycle.
think he did too. I
We
mean,
were misled.
And
And he said that he was wrong. I mean, he admitted, and we asked him,
Well,
well, what are you going to
liability-
do about
yeah,
it? And he
okay.
said nothing. I mean, he basically said nothing.
well,
And
I
that's
would
what-
recommend, we are a very large group and, have looked at opportunities to consolidate with others. I would think moving forward, we would want to meet with other representatives
Right.
of this company collectively
Well, and
to see what options are available to provide remedy for issues that have transpired, and moving forward to provide utter clarification of what we're facing with deductible, with every
Right.
issue,
Because I
and
don't-
have it in writing.
Right.
If
And
we-
it was in writing, but I don't think we had a copy of the contract. I think we had to get him to send us a contract.
well, if we were to bring it before the insurance commission, that's what I think needs to happen, because you can't charge a year's deductible for 6 months anyway. I mean, I don't see where that they can do that. Could we bring it before the insurance commission?
I don't think that it could be, because I believe Billy signed off on it, if I'm not mistaken.
And that was something
Can
Billy
we
signed.
see what he signed off on?
I think
Sure, we
they
can get a
finally
copy of
got
it. I think we have a
Monday.
copy of it.
We have a copy of it, and the document clearly says it's a 12-month calendar year.
There you go. There you go.
But see, that, he'll tell you a calendar year is different. A calendar year runs from January 1st
But
to
if it
December.
says
But when
12
the
months.
policy started, the
That's kinda what
calendar
we thought.
portion of that year would have been from July 1st of 2013 to June 30th of 2014. That would be a
Right.
calendar year.
That's-
We got plenty of attorneys here, and I don't want to
Well, we brought
delve
that
into
up.
the legal arena, but that would appear to be the
Right.
case.
We actually brought that up, you know, our calendar year is from July 1st to June 30th. That's how we do our fiscal year, because that's when we do our accounting, you know, and that's when we have the auditor come in, that's when we do insurance policies. We brought these points up, but, I mean, I'm not here to fuss or anything like that. I'm just here to express a concern, let all of you know the concern that employees have, and that there is, you know, we want to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
And we appreciate that, and I think we need to go back and look at what we can do to remedy issues that have transpired and move forward and make sure that there's no further reoccurrence of this type of issue, because let me tell you what, this is a very good plan. My plan's $7,500 deductible. This is phenomenal.
Now,
In
and hopefully we
today's
can
day
go
and time.
forward with this plan and not have to, you know, be looking for another plan, so.
And with this right here, it kind of puts us where in the driver's seat instead of being told what our premiums are going to be, because what's going to affect our premiums is our claims history. And our claims history, knock on wood, has been exceptionally well so far, and we get through 90 more days.
Right.
I think we're going to save somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over $200,000. Now that's $200,000 that we haven't given to an insurance company.
Right. Now, is there any way, if that continues, that can you look at reducing
That's exactly right. I was just talking with Elaine today, because in doing so, we could actually maybe at that point reduce, because at $390-something for an employee's cost is really pretty good cost. But the thing is, what we could go in and look at maybe, because we have, right now, I think it's just family. We don't have employee and spouse, employee and child, or employee and spouse. Employee, in fact, there's 4 tiers. And in doing so with that, because if you take somebody who's got a wife and 6 kids, they'll pay the same thing that has a wife, or just a child, or a wife and a
Just
child.
family.
It's just family.
You
And
have
then that way-
latitude deductibles can be decreased. The one
Right.
thing that we need to keep in mind is the fact that while we're having a good year this year, we do need to set aside some of our savings for potentially
A bad
in the
year.
future if there is a bad year. But I am 100% on board with looking at premium deductions and helping county employees more cover the various costs associated with healthcare that are included in this plan.
Okay.
And we appreciate
All
y'all
right, thank
bringing this to
That's
our
good
That was
concerns.
Good.
And like I said, because I had things in December, because I thought it was, but like I said, I didn't sign or do anything with that. I thought it was a calendar year deductible as far as from July 1st to June 30th, because I went to the doctor in December.
So,
All right,
But-
well, thank y'all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Next item on the list is the updated land use regulations. We'll start off with Mr. Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed last month we had an issue about our land use regulations, and I would like to address the board. I think that our land use regulations needs updating. If you'll look at it, I think it's geared more toward a bigger, toward cities and things like that. There's just some things in there that's so restrictive that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I know one thing in particular, if somebody's got 50 acres, they can only build one house on that 50 acres. You know, that doesn't, if they want to build their kid a house, or they want to have a house over in the back 30, they can't. And I would like, if this board is willing to direct our county manager to talk to our zoning board to see if they can go over our regulations and maybe tweak them a little bit.
Right. What I would suggest, if it's okay, is to have our planning commission go through the regulations and make some suggestions for your approval. And we can start that process at our next planning commission meeting.
Also, John, public hearings are required anytime that you even are considering making changes to your land use ordinance. And, they're very good point, because it was adopted May 1st, 2005, so basically we're going on 9 years. And we knew that when adopted, it might require some tweaking in order to suit our needs. So I'll have no problem with that whatsoever.
Well, I actually think the planning commission is on point. They see the need, so I think we need to go that way. Any other comments? Sounds good. Sounds good.
You do that.
Yes, sir. Be glad to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now we need to talk a little about the flyer 2015 budget. Mr. Phillips, if you'll start us off on the budget.
I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman. As you know, it's time for us to start looking and making preparation for the 2015 fiscal year budget. I know we've gone through several different processes in the past as far as preparation of the budget. And I guess what I would like to do tonight, as much as anything, is just get some input from the board as to how involved you'd like to be, if we want to have individual meetings with the individual departments, or how we'd like to start the budget process this year.
I'll start us off on that. I like the way we handled it last year. That is the fact that I asked all of the constitutional officers and the other department heads to work on the budget, and then maybe bring us up to date on what they asked them for, and let us look at it and talk to them about it.
I would concur with that. One thing that I would say, I know we have just recently changed back software, and we haven't had the budget documents that we really need to be able to evaluate the current budget as well as the 2015 budget. Do we have an idea about the time frame of when those documents will be available? We've got to have them.
Yeah. Elaine and her staff have been working very diligently. We really feel like that next month we will have some pretty good information as far as budget reports. So that's what we're shooting for, and we'll plan to have those ready for you next month to start to take a look.
I would agree with Chairman Bridges 100%. If the constitutional officers and department heads would prepare their budgets initially, have county staff, yourself, Elaine, and others do a initial preliminary review. Once y'all have completed that, then we'll sit down and go through our official planning and budgeting review sessions with each department head, constitutional officer. But I would defer to my colleagues for additional input.
Any other input on this?
No, I like the way we did it last year with meeting with the different departments.
That sounds good. Any other input on the budget process? We'll get that started. Let's move to the jail expansion. As you recall, we set up a subcommittee to talk in terms of how we're going to fund additional expansion of our jail facility. So I'm going to start us off here by asking Commissioner Strickland if you'll give us a subcommittee report.
Well, what I did was I asked Andrew and Roger if they would come up, and have you got the handouts you could?
Yeah, sure.
What we're trying to do is figure out a way how to financially afford, which could possibly be $2.5 or $3 million. And then I kind of thought at the same time, it's like if we're going to do that, because if we go toward a bond, the bond is going to run us, just the cost of it, $110,000 to do, whether it's a $1 million or a $10 million bond. Is that not correct? The cost?
There are certain fixed costs.
Fixed costs, yeah.
I mean, it's a
Yeah,
relatively
basically,
small.
but that's given the layman's term. And so what I thought was if we were to come in and try to see how much we could get done with other things that it's generating, income producing. So I thought about the gas line and all, and so that's why I'm glad to see City of Royston with us, because I spoke with the mayor and seeing about if we could come in maybe $1 million to do that, then we could have income coming in for the future and kill two birds with one stone. And in doing so, looking at over a 15-year loan, and then taking the first 4 years, because this is going to hinge on with the SPOS in 2 years, and after that, what we're looking at is then you're going to have some time for the money to actually come in. And if we were to do just the interest only, and then we've got, in talking with Gary, we could have money coming in from other counties with housing inmates, because we're going to have, 96 or 98 beds? And we're looking at about, 20-ish that we have to house out now? So then that leaves us about 70 plus, or around 70-something beds that we could have income coming in until we're in the same situation in 10 years where we are right now. Because the state is putting everything back on the county.
I don't know if we can exactly count that as income, because there are certain operational costs with the new jail that are expenditures, and it's looking like, over $200,000.
I understand, and then with that, that's why we have, and that's why, like I said, what we're looking at, and like I say, this is what's called a starting point to deal with, and that's why I asked Andrew and Roger to come, because they could probably tell you more about than I would.
Let's give them opportunity
Well,
to
that's-
express this information that you just handed.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I'm Andrew Tritt, and I'm more on the finance side, and Roger's on the legal side tonight, conversation-wise. What we talked about in the committee meeting is that we looked at several amortization schedules and concluded that 15 years provided the county with a lot of flexibility. While this is a 15-year kind of deal, if you had the money available, usually when we sell these kind of deals, there's effectively like a blackout period. That's 5 or 6 years that you're paying on the debt. And after that period, you can either refinance for a lower rate or pay it off. And so what we did was we stretched out the amortization schedule to make it more affordable. We had a 4-year period that was interest only, which is the direction that we got. So that way it would allow the county to have a little bit of time for the sales tax to kick in should the servicing of this debt service be included on that referendum. And so what we did here is, if you look at this pink sheet, and the only difference is between a $3 million deal and a $4 million deal, between the pink and the blue. The column 2 is your principal, column 3 is interest, and then column 4 is your annual debt service. So you see it's about $84,000 a year based on when we took a snapshot in the market during the interest-only period, and then it kicks up to about $325 a year. And we showed you, based on your M&O 2013 millage, you see that it's 0.15 mils, and then it kicks up to just under 0.6 mils. If it relied on property tax. I mean, if you had other revenues available, then, that's y'all's decision on how you budget for it. But we just wanted to show you that so you could understand the implications, because the legal structure of this is, basically an intergovernmental contract between the public building authority and the county. And so the county's putting its, taxing powers behind this debt. And Roger, I don't know, that's kind of maybe a segue into the legality of it. But, that's it in a snapshot. Generally speaking, interest rates are pretty low from a historic perspective. And as you see the economy get better, you're going to see building costs increase to some degree. So from a timing perspective, I think that y'all are pretty good based on, you know, the low rate environment. You know, it could change over time. And that's perhaps a 10,000 foot analysis for him.
You want to talk, Roger, about the legal aspect of it?
Yeah. So, yeah, the financing structure is really how many years you want to repay it, and if you want to create a window up front. Those really, and we can do any option you want. The way that we recommended that the transaction be structured is that you have your public facilities authority. I don't know if you guys know that you have a public facilities authority. I'm not sure you've ever used it, but one was created by local law, created Franklin County Public Building Authority, Public Facilities Authority, and it has the power to assist with the financing of public buildings or facilities for the county. So what we would recommend is that the Public Building Authority would actually do the bond issue, and that they would take title to the assets and in effect sell them back to the county. And you would do that by virtue of an intergovernmental agreement between the authority and the county. And the advantage of doing that is it becomes a general obligation of the county, and so the payments under the contract, which are used to pay the bonds. So you have the highest, credit rating and lowest borrowing costs if you use that structure. There are other structures we could use. For example, I don't know if you guys have been to the ACCG training program, but they have a lease purchase program where ACCG would hold title and lease the facilities back on an annual renewable basis, but your interest rates would be a lot higher if you did that. So it's fortunate that you have this Public Facilities Authority that's been created, and that's why we think you ought to use that if you're going to move forward with this financing.
Now, you're saying we could coordinate getting the funds to expand the jail, plus co-op with Royston if they choose for us to get funds to start natural gas throughout the county?
Yes, the people that are going to buy these bonds, are going to loan the money, they're not looking at the assets, they care, but they don't really care what's being financed. So the advantage of that is we can lump together any types of assets that you want in this financing. It can be a jail and gas facilities. It could be, literally anything.
Has that law recently changed? Because we looked at that about 4 or 5 years ago, combining several other projects collectively into one bond, and we're told by council that we could not.
Because that is probably a GO bond issue. Yeah, if we were to hold a referendum to issue general obligation bonds, I think that was the issue. So, the voters would approve a bond issue. When counties do that, they have to have separate projects, have to have separate questions. So the voters would approve a bond issue for the jail expansion and a separate bond issue for general obligation bond issue for the gas.
Could we not say, would that be with utilities? Word utilities instead of saying gas? I'm not really sure I follow you on what you're talking about with it.
So it's just there are different ways to different types of bond issues. One is a revenue bond issue, and the other is a general obligation bond issue. And general obligation bonds have to be approved by the voters, and so you have a question. And we would actually have 2 questions because they're different assets that are being financed by general obligation bonds. So in this transaction, because we're issuing revenue bonds backed by an intergovernmental contract, we don't have to have 2 separate questions. We can lump the projects together.
Okay.
And you could, it could be for utility, it could be for anything you want. Anything you want to say, it could be broadly for utilities, including but not limited to extension of gas lines or other utilities.
David, is the methodology for repayment factored exclusively on passage of SPLOST?
Well, with option 1,
Okay, what are you calling option 1? Are you calling that public offering?
basically the
Blue?
well, just all it is one's $3 million and one's $4 million. The blue is doing the gas.
Right.
The other one is just this because that's $1 million for that. Okay. And in doing so, I just tell you, my thinking is that with this, the more we can do for the citizens of Franklin County, the better it is for everybody in Franklin County. And if we can save them, because natural gas, if I'm not mistaken, will save a third of their propane.
Save 60% approximately.
Oh, well, I didn't know exactly, but I know it'd save a lot of money for them.
And I concur with you. I'm one that basically asked for the gas subcommittee to be formed, so I agree with you. I'm just wanting to understand the financial.
Yeah, and in doing so, well, like I said, with that, Jeff, that's why I went to and called the mayor of Royston this morning and asked him that if he could be here tonight so we could, like I say, it's a work session, and let's work together for the better of Franklin County.
Well, we would structure the transactions so you could use any legally available funds, which would include revenues from the gas customers. It would include if you house prisoners at the jail. It would include if you had a contract with the city of Royston. You could make the payments from whatever source you wanted, including sales tax proceeds if you add that as a specific purpose in the next, SPLOST.
My question is, what if SPLOST doesn't pass? That's the $4 million question.
Well, and that's where I think that I think it boils down to educate the citizens of Franklin County.
My question is, what if SPLOST does not pass? How will we pay for it?
Well, then we just have to find a way to raise money.
I think now is the time to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Well, we know how basically counties operate, and the thing is, that's why I say that it's basically good that we would educate the taxpayer body of Franklin County that it would behoove in their best interest, because we know who all pays the taxes in the county, which is the property owners.
And my question remains, how are we going to pay for it if SPLOST does not pass?
You talking about the jail or the gas or both?
Well, it would be both.
Well, it would be both on one, is what he's saying.
Well, I guess the answer would be gas revenues.
Well, I've got a question. Maybe this will help clarify for me. Is the $1 million that would be put forth, would that be done in conjunction with the city of Royston for a major expansion? Would this be $1 million that just the county would be expanding the city of Royston gas system? Or, like I said, is it collaborative or singular?
We are throwing everything out on the table to discuss. That's not in stone. At this point, we've looked at a number of scenarios. We've met with other gas companies to co-op. We've met with, Commerce, Toccoa, Hartwell. And so it's kind of all on the table right now. We don't even know what the total cost would be.
Absolutely.
So we're doing surveys right now with Municipal Gas Authority. We're looking down on the Bowl Springs area. We're really focused and set on getting that in the ground.
And that's definitely based on the mapping that we saw at our meeting. That's where you have the largest consolidation of users.
But we have the engineering prepared for the other side of Carnesville.
Brown Road,
All
over
that
there.
there. So we've got engineering for one part and the other, but we really need to focus down on the lower end where there's an even bigger demand.
That's where you get your biggest return. But David, what, based on that expansion, was the payback time? I mean, we're looking at potentially paying back with revenues. If I remember looking correctly, it was a minimum of 7 years before we could
That one on
anticipate.
Brown Road was even longer than that. It was like 10, 15 years.
Yeah, the one on Brown Road was right at 16 years.
Right.
Yeah, almost 16.
And that's what I'm saying. I just don't know if we can come in right now looking at this debt service chart and you could even begin projecting income from gas sales until you got to, and I just want to be upfront about every aspect of it. I mean, I am in favor of expanding natural gas, not from an agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial. It's a win-win.
It all depends on also the poultry producer. If we were to ask them to contribute in as far as their meters and their fees for installation, their tap fees, if they were to pay that portion in, we could do some sort of installment for them as well, let them pay that over a period of time. They would immediately start saving money as far as.
But how much was the Bolt Springs project? You're looking.
We were looking at just that probably,
I mean,
over $1 million.
Yeah, it was right at 1.2, but
I
that
thought it
was,
was more than that.
no, that was
That was the whole thing, was $3
yeah,
million.
that was
to
Franklin,
them.
that was Sandy Cross and Bold Springs was about 2.5 million.
But you can't, you gotta go through Sandy Cross to get the Bolt Springs.
No, they already on the upper.
They're down there at 51.
We're at 51.
Okay.
We already up there
Okay,
at Petra.
right, okay.
Well, what I'm hearing, y'all would co-op with us if we could come up with a lot of
Well, there's a lot of, as like Commissioner Jake said, there are a lot of unknowns right now
Yeah.
in how we would do this, but depending if we assessed a fee for the poultry farmer to get the meter and the tap, figure out what that cost would be, if they would have put that into the investment, and then we would have to look at, if the county wanted to participate in installation or a bond in some way to help us with that, and we're open to a number of possibilities.
I mean, we're open. When we start talking about using the revenues from gas sales in order to retire debt, I know at a minimum of 7 years, and then we're looking at severity of winters. We're even looking at potentially, changes in different types of energy. And I think natural gas is a very sustainable supply, and it looks like with the additional deposits they find it, at least in the future, but we don't know.
We sort of figured, and I don't want to speak out right now in turn on this, but we figured that if the poultry farmer were to be required to pay for their meters and their tap fees, then it would cut the Bold Spring price in less than half of that. About 500,000.
I guess one thing you would have to do is conduct a survey to see how many of them would be willing to put that type of money up front. So like I said, we've got to, and I know we're just exploring tonight, but we have to know these factors.
You can talk to some of the farmers that's already got natural gas, and they can see what the savings would be in the first year, though, Jim.
Oh, I agree. I'm 100% in concurrence. I'm just looking at it from the aspect of revenue, when can it be factored into the retirement of a major debt? That's all I'm looking at. And 100% in favor. Just want to make sure that we can pay for it.
And we like the project to pay for itself in about 5 or 6 years, not 15 years. That's too far to finance for proprietary.
And that's the whole thing with the county getting in, it would pay itself within the 15, lower than the 15, correct?
Well, if you had SPLOST money to come in
Right,
and allow that to pay some of that fee down for these farmers,
right.
it would dramatically cut the payback.
And at the same time with Stevie and Gary's jail over there as well.
Exactly.
And that's what we're looking at.
That SPLOST would help these farmers tremendously.
Right, and that's what my whole thinking was behind this. If we can do this, it's better for the whole county as one. It'd be, because with that, you're coming in and, taxpayers, they wind up having to foot the bill for everything anyway, and why not educate them to let them know? Because just like with the major medical, a $1,250 deductible is much better than a $4,500 deductible any way you look at it. But if you go back to the other one, you're going to wind up paying more. And it's just like in Clint's question, well, who's going to pay for it? Well, it's who pays for it anyway. It's the taxpayers.
My question was, what if SPLOST did not pass? How are we going to pay for
You got to raise taxes.
Well, then,
Say it again.
You got to raise taxes.
We're gonna have to raise taxes, that's exactly right.
well, taxpayers pay for everything anyway.
So what we're doing here is
Trying to
forcing.
phase ways for
we're-
people not to
we're-
pay
we're-
taxes, increase their taxes. is what we're trying.
I'm just asking, how's it gonna be paid for if SPLOST does not get voted in? We can educate, we can do whatever we want to, but we're not guaranteed that SPLOST will be, and I don't think we need to start spending SPLOST money before SPLOST is even voted in.
Let's go back to, I believe the grand jury has been recommending that he expand the jail now since
Mr. Chairman.
205.
We don't have a choice. Put the jail itself.
Since 205.
Just so you know, Mr. Chairman, that issue was addressed during our meeting with that committee as far as how it was going to be paid. And we asked the people to know approximately what was it going to cost for a tax increase, because if the SPLOST didn't pass, ultimately it's coming back to us, the taxpayers. And I believe the answer was that it
It's on
was
the
a
sheet, if you look at the pink
Yeah.
sheet.
third of a mil.
Yeah, this is based on the 2015 digest, so assuming there's no growth in the digest. there's the millage rate, and this also assumes that you don't get any revenues from
Yes.
prisoners. I'm just looking
Pro
at
prison, okay.
So this assumes that, you know,
So it's a 3/4 of a millage for us, what it winds up being.
well, no, it's,
Is that not .78?
well, that's with the gas. This is just the jail.
I say you got to remember,
Oh,
there's
it's
going to be
all
an
in.
increase in the operational costs.
In the operation, a minimum
jail
just
And that's what we were looking.
140,000 plus utilities, so you're probably looking at what?
It's 200,000.
Yeah, about 200, close to $200,000
With the
more
more
in our
additional.
budget.
Right, and I understand what the board's concern was, that, you know, we were coming here and we didn't have the, you know, the time, wasn't able to get ourselves wrapped around what we were gonna do. Based on what we're planning here, we're going to keep the money in the bank that we have, yes?
Yeah.
That's going to go to pay the interest until the splash or the decision is made how we're going to pay for it. It's going to be one or the other. That's money that's sitting in the bank to take care of that, that gives us 4 years to plan how we're going to do this, whether it's going to require the splash if it passes, or if it's saying, okay, general public property owners, come 4 years from now, we're going to have to increase whatever the millage rate's going to be to cover the cost of the operation of the jail. If you get the information out there, you're planning in advance, it's not like we're throwing it down their throats. It's going to be out there, and again, as David says, education.
Yeah, we don't have a choice about the jail.
What I would like to have seen was more than one plan for the jail. I mean, there's other options that are out there, but we've only seen one plan, and it's apparent we cannot afford that at this juncture. Now, if SPLOST
Well, we
is,
discussed other options and everything, Clint.
I've
We're
seen
there.
one plan.
Well, if you would have been there, because you're on the committee and you wasn't in attendance.
I wasn't notified.
Was he not notified, John?
I was not notified.
Elaine, was Clint notified?
That's not the topic of the meeting tonight.
Oh, I'm just asking
Let's
questions.
stay, let's
I was
stay, let's
not
stay on
notified.
task.
Okay.
It appears to me like I'm satisfied with the plan we have. I think the majority of the commissioners have voiced that they're pretty well satisfied with the plan we have. The question is how we're going to pay for it, and that's why we're here tonight to discuss that issue. And as I see it, we need to get back together in a subcommittee. We will make sure we include Royston. We appreciate their interest in expanding natural gas for our poultry producers and other people that like to have natural gas in the county. I'd like to see the county co-op with Royston, because we have a lot of capability, for instance, with a backhoe and dig the trenches. Things of that nature that would cut co-op so we could actually
Save money.
save money in the long run and help our citizens out in the long run.
Our guys don't have that type of experience. Those guys are very knowledgeable with the city of Boyston. They're system experts on installation, maintenance, et cetera. But, you know, just.
You know, that's just,
Well, if we dig in ditches for water, I'm sure we can dig ditches for gas.
Are you sure?
I mean, I would think I would be.
yeah.
I mean, hell, I believe in being positive instead of negative.
Not
Because
being
you get more with
negative,
cheese.
being realistic.
But
Well, if you
that-
can dig a ditch, you can dig a ditch.
excuse me, Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
With that, I appreciate what the information we have here on the ways that we could pay for this. Now, coming back to the question, if we decide to go with this, when could we get started on expanding our jail?
All right, so, yeah, I guess it's kind of the decision tree is, do you want to wait till your analysis is done on the gas to lump the two together, or do you want to get started right away on the jail project? You know, that's up to y'all, whatever you want.
What benefits us from lumping this together? Could not we put it in the SPLOST?
What the benefits is this fixed cost, because you're gonna pay, like, the rating agency and you know, you're gonna have to pay lawyers and bankers and stuff like that. So those, rather than paying them twice, there's certain fixed costs, you spread them out, you just pay them once. So you're gonna save a little bit of cost of issuance, is the only advantage to putting out $1 million now.
Well, the way I see it, we should wait. I mean, we're kind of getting in even deeper with payments and uncertainty, and I think it would be prudent for us, as far as the gas is concerned, to wait and put it on a SPLOST.
Well, that's one question, one thing we could pursue. Although we want to put it together. Looking at the propane gas prices that both the producers paid out this one, they would have been gladly to tack on practically any price we want to forward that to Royston to keep it in the county rather than send it to propane out of the county. Plus the returns for both the producers will be at least 50 or 60% going back into our economy. So I see a win-win situation here for co-op with Royston as soon as possible, and also get started with the jail as soon as possible. If we have, we should have had, we should have had the jail on the splash this last go-around, because grand juries has been recommended all this time, but it was left off. We need to bring it back. They approved it one time. I'm sure they'll be willing to approve it again, because we've collected a considerable amount of money on the splash towards the jail previously, and I'm sure if they did put it on the splash and they approved it one time, they approve it again. So I feel good and safe about us moving forward. Captain
Mr.
Smith?
Chairman, and as I told you, the last grand jury that just met last week, their recommendation to the commission is that you move forward on the jail project while the interest is low. That is their statement that's typed in the grand jury minutes.
Now, let me get this, answer this question correctly. If we as a county commission can decide on when to start this project, jail project, if I understood you correctly, we would have, if we were going to do it on one bond and combine the co-op with Royston, we would have actually all our ducks in a row to start. If we do two separate ones, it would cost additional funds because we'd have to come back and do the co-op. Suppose we just did the jail to start off with. Back to the question, when can we get started on the jail?
We can get you money in about 60 days from when you give us the green light to move forward. It'll be about 60 days.
Okay. Okay.
We were looking at what, maybe July, and have everything started and going.
Yeah, right, so.
Now, back to that, if we try to get together with our co-partners down here at Royston and co-op the two, would it be about 60 days after we gathered that information and decided we won't go co-op?
Yeah.
Okay, so the fund will be available.
I have a question for council. The county currently already has a couple of bonds that have been floated. What is the legality? I've been trying to do a little bit of legal research myself, but not to a whole lot of avail. You don't need to put an engineer in the legal arena. But what about utilizing an existing bond and expanding that bond? It appears that there is potential for that just based on what I have read and not having to go back through the whole floating the bond process. No? Okay.
Yeah,
Are you talking about maybe water bonds or something?
That's correct.
We looked at that and trying to maybe refi, but that was a thing we looked at as well. That wasn't, but that was a good thought. We thought.
I talked with Bubba about that previously, and he said that he would check on it.
Yeah, we looked at refinancing those from a high interest rate to a low interest rate, and we ran the numbers, and it just doesn't.
Okay, so that
it doesn't make sense right now.
Okay.
Well,
Do y'all have any other things that y'all want to mention about the jail?
All I was going to say is that with that right there, we discussed that there's, what, 3 possible ways of doing is what you told us, correct? And that what we looked at basically came to be the most cost favorable to us, that would assist us in our situation. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
What we looked at, what we discussed with those.
It's the lowest cost and it gives you the least exposure and the most time to, you know, to make.
Because what you're gonna do is 3 years, and I asked you to go one more year on the interest, just to give us a little breathing room.
Right.
Yeah.
Could we get some firm numbers if SPOS does not pass and we go through with this? What tax increase we're going to occur by doing this action? Could we get that at least to be fair to the taxpayers? John, if we get some kind of,
I believe he pointed out how much we would have to raise the
but,
taxes.
no, we're talking about the $200,000 a year added to the sheriff's budget because of hiring and the upkeep and maintenance of the new jail. I'm talking the whole kit and caboodle, what it's going to cost taxpayers.
Are we sure it's gonna cost $200,000 a year?
Yes.
That was the number provided to us.
You gotta look at the officers, there, you gotta look at detention officers, you gotta make sure you got enough there, you got to have one transporting steel back to the hospital, as many mental health people as we got. You still gotta look at extra personnel, and it's gonna
Well,
take.
we got 5 people at $10 an hour, that's, like saying, that's $20,000 a year, that's $100,000.
I've
And
done
then
the
there's
math.
100 for all of them.
I've already done the math, I can bring it to you at the next meeting. I've done the math.
It's
down to
200? Because the answer, we can fine tune it, but the answer is really, we got it right here, because if the debt service is 300, and you add $200,000 onto that in operating costs, what Andrew shows at the bottom of the page is 1 mil in today's digest produces $558,000. So your answer is worst case scenario approximately 1 mil
And
on a 2013.
And also to be
digest.
fair, there is savings with the new jail because you're not housing out inmates, and based on what I've seen, it's anywhere from $7,000 a month
And you're
plus or
paying,
minus to
you're
a
not
high
paying
of
for
10.
stuff to tear up either.
Yeah.
That's what's hurt us a lot with this money we've got. You had to redo the roof. You had to, redo the boiler and buy water heaters in there instead of going back with this big old revamp kitchen.
Well, we don't have a choice but to move forward, and I will have to say, I like the plan as good as anything that I've seen with the latitude that it gives. I think the only thing we would need to determine is if we would want to build it out completely or just build half, because you're still saving, $300,000 plus by not completing the last 2 pods. I brought up initially the funding about retiring the debt with the SPLOST. I'm in favor of that, but we do need to have a plan B in case the voters ultimately determine that that is not feasible at that time. We have to have alternatives in place. Yeah, I'm kind of blindsided tonight, to be totally honest, and I kind of apologize. I was not anticipating any discussion, regarding the gas, although I'm.
Well, that's what came up, what made me think
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
when we were talking right at the end of the meeting, I just said, well, what if we were to come in and it was just a last minute thought?
I'm in favor of anything we can do as far as expanding gas in a legal manner, something that's gonna help the citizens, but ultimately, we're running very tight on our budgets, and I was just concerned, because I know that in years past, the payback that I've seen has been a minimum of 7 years, and there's just a lot of factors that can change between now and 7 years. Unfortunately, we were seeing a cycle of the addition of many poultry farms in the county, and now, I don't think we've done a rezoning for a poultry farm in a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Banks aren't loans.
I got one more question. Okay, you said that if you do this consolidation, how long is it gonna take to get your data up? And because if we could start the jail in 90 days, that's helping us too, but I understand about this other.
I'd be willing to, they'd be out there down.
I mean, that's what I
I
mean.
hadn't got the engineering.
But you,
We have got the engineering on that.
okay, so you're looking at, for 90 days versus how many days it take y'all to get the information there, and then 90 days after that, so
How long would that take, Dave?
it take 30 days?
You reckon?
The engineering part, probably 60 days. And that's giving them plenty of time.
So we're looking September, or like before we start scratching, right?
Well, I think at some point, we've talked about this a good bit, but I think at some point,
I can come up with figures from just measuring distances and figuring out the price of the pipe. Until you actually get to engineering and you got your exact measurements, you got all your road bores or creek bores, river bores figured in. I mean, everything is just a guess until you have that engineering study and
How soon could
get ready to put it out for bid. Yeah, I mean, if the engineer could start, you could probably have something, within 30 days. But, you look at, do you want to spend, at what point do you want to say, okay, engineer, go to work, and then in 30 days we owe him $50,000? Or, somebody's going to have to spend some money to start with to get the engineering. I mean, that's a must.
Let's just say everything falls into place. What is the legal arrangement? Would the county be in the gas business and have a meter from a certain point and buy gas, or would it be basically some type of intergovernmental agreement where there is joint use and revenue sharing between the entities?
If we did it, we'd have to look at some sort of revenue share. That's the question. See, from now on, we have to maintain that line. We have to
And that's why I'm asking.
for the liability.
Jeff and I are on the subcommittee, and we had no idea this was going on. Had none.
We would have to, and we talked about this with other gas companies, other municipalities, but we would have to come up with some decision about what portion of the revenue share would go back to the county, because we have a lot of overhead to cover. We have all those miles we have to take care of, and the liability and stuff, so the revenue share portion would have to be worked out. We don't even know exactly what that would be. That's,
So I'm saying, these factors, we have to know them. Before I can vote on anything, I've got to be able to put everything in black and white. I'm sorry.
Well, Chairman, I'd just like to say that I really appreciate you guys even considering gas value for putting on a referendum, hopefully in the future, or making some kind of deal. 4 years ago, Royston came to the Board of Commissioners with a plan to help out in the county as far as getting gas expansion, and it was turned away. So I'm really thankful that you guys think enough of it to even look at it. I would have to say with Commissioner Harper that, the what if the SPLOST doesn't pass. I understand that the grand juries make recommendations that there be an expansion for the jail there, but again, the SPLOST money that was allocated 4 years ago, we haven't expanded. Who's to say they're going to do it again?
Well, there was no money set aside for that.
That's right.
We asked for $1 million, and somewhere the decimal got moved over to $100,000. And we got the same thing City of Royston got, I think, for the police department. And that don't even bother.
Apples, it's not apples, you're right. It's going to be a tough selling point.
Well, my thought with that, it was like I say, just at the end of our meeting that we had, and I thought that it would be a way to help the taxpayers of Franklin County in the future, and then at the same time, what we'd be doing is killing 2 or 3 birds with one shot, and then we would have the farmers, because it would be beneficial to them, to help us with passing the SPLOST when it does come up in 2 years.
Right.
That's just my thought.
I think going back what the mayor said is that whatever Royston do on this side too, the debt services, and like I said, something has to be worked out, so debt services be, because it's got to be paid, and if we're going to be a part of it, that's got to be revenue for Royston as well.
Well, and that's why I called Dave, because like I say, Clint may have just found out, but David just found out this morning. Did you know?
Right. This is the first time we've really had any.
And I don't know when the last time, because I know the last time I heard anything about the gas is when everybody was in here, and I hadn't heard about any other meetings past that.
Well, the previous county administrator had been meeting with our city manager, and so I think engineers had talked, and the municipal gas authority, I think, superintendent here has talked. So there's been some operational folks that have had meetings. No policymakers have met. This is the first time any policymakers have come together to discuss this specifically with the county. With the county. Now, with other cities, we've had meetings, but not the county.
And I'm just trying to refresh my memory when we met back in, I can't even remember, December or November. And they were talking about going from Flying J. Wasn't there a problem with not big enough line or something to carry that with? I remember something about being that because they focused more coming up 51 on the $3 million project than the than the other project because of there wouldn't be enough supply or something. Now, I'm just going by memory, and I'm not certain on that, but that's what I was thinking.
No, when we did the initial simplified survey, the route to Bowl Springs, we were really just looking at 4-inch plastic pipe, which it's, it's ready for that. We did have an engineer take a quick look at it, just run the numbers on the houses that we had, and it was his determination that we would have to run 6-inch pipe down 59 as far as we're going down there, and then come off with 4, because at some point the velocity was too high, so 4 wouldn't work all the way. So you're looking at probably 3 miles of 6-inch pipe instead of.
Okay, I knew that they had something about.
But the last thing that we had to catch you up a little bit, and about a month ago we did have a meeting. May not have been a month ago. We had a meeting at the library in Royston with the City of Commerce, the City of Toccoa, the City of Hartwell, and the City of Royston, and I'll explain that. The City of Commerce has expressed an interest in coming from Commerce on 59, and they have, they sound interested in helping us with that project. The City of Toccoa was notified because they are under the countywide safety plan. They're the only other gas operator in Franklin County. So if there was any swap of territory, then Toccoa, even though they're not close to us in the Bowl Springs area, we'd still have to have their blessing before we move forward with anything, which they would, that wouldn't be an issue. The City of Hartwell was invited because they had expressed an interest in just investing in the project. They wouldn't touch the project, they just, if they wanted to invest in it. And, that's true of any gas system. I mean, I'm just saying gas system, could be anybody, any gas system. If they wanted to invest in the project, would be welcome to, they would be free to do that if that's the way we went. What we came out from that meeting was the Gas Authority has had a representative in the Bowl Springs area actually getting contact information. The first round is visiting the farms, getting the contact information, knowing who to talk to, finding out if they have interest, gathering data on, how many houses they got, what their BTU load is, age of the houses, size of the houses, various things, and all that would be factored in. Do we need a 6-inch pipe or do we need a 4-inch pipe? And after we have the contact information, the next step would be, okay, if it's determined that, that customer needs to have a little buy-in in this project. If we just ran the line down through there and said, oh, it's free to hook on, well, yeah, everybody's going to. But at some point, we're going to ask, are you willing to have a little buy-in in this project? You kick a little money in to start with,
Right. Yeah.
and you're going to be saving money. So, and that's where we're at now. And the guy that was doing the research with the Gas Authority, I found out today he's in the hospital. He had an accident with his lawnmower, and it got on top of him. So he's out of commission for a little bit, but he has already been over there in contact with a lot of farmers in the area.
But to kind of add on this point, we're talking about the $1 million, and I understand, we're looking at probably just a ballpark estimate on the expansion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Could we look at potentially, how are we going to know, because you're going to have to be very definitive with whatever amount you're looking at and adding to the bond, you're going to have the information about what cost is going to be requested of the property owner. And I know that y'all have been looking at evaluating that, and I would like to know if that's something that y'all would want to look at financially also. Something that would help overall reduce our exposure as far as the county. And then all of us potentially move forward, providing the service again to agricultural, residential, and potentially industrial, and shifting the exposure, but also sharing in the potential gain. And help minimizing the liability that we would have, say, if these are co-opted and SPLOST doesn't pass, then everybody shares some of the overall cost until it actually starts paying for itself, and not even mention generating a profit, of which it will.
And that's what I was saying is with that, because we're looking at that, because we come in and we get the growers to come in at, say, $1,500 a house and get them to commit that for 5 years. If we got 200 houses, we got $300,000, we got $1.5 million over 5 years.
That's
Is that not, that's just.
Well, I just want to see numbers. I want to know the commitment of the poultry farmer. If Royston is interested, if Commerce, I'm on board. I've been on board from day one. I just want to do it in a smart, methodical manner where we're not putting the taxpaying citizen at a major liability risk. Because I'm not saying.
I think the commitment part would be good, and we've talked about that a lot, but that is almost impossible. I mean, we can, if you look at the commitment, you can go by and ask the farmer, yes, I'm interested. Okay. And he is interested. He says he's interested. Okay. If you say, well, we're planning on doing this, but you're going to have to pay us $4,000. But we don't have a stick of pipe in the ground anywhere. Now, is he going to pay that $4,000? Absolutely not. So,
Well, I don't know.
These
people, I don't know.
And I understand that, but I'm saying that if you're using that as a factor that's going to overall minimize the construction cost of the county, we got to know. If the city is going to be a contributor, if Commerce, we got to know exactly.
Well, we probably wouldn't go with Commerce if we went work with the county. I don't think we'd want to go through that.
No problem with that. But we just need to know each group of stakeholders, how much is each one going to invest.
What was the COA's feedback when y'all met with the gas?
well, they're looking at stuff. Of course, they're still working from the northern expansion that they made several years ago, and they're getting in good shape with that now. So now our main conversation with the COA was maybe the 106 area, not really the Bold Springs area. So that would be, that's right, Brown Road.
Logistically, it's not feasible for them.
No, I mean, they wouldn't be over there. It would only be dollars.
That's
It
not
wouldn't
their
be
service
pipe.
delivery area anyway, is it?
No, it wouldn't be pipe over to Bold Springs. It'd just be dollars, so.
Now, how much, let's get back to the question here. We was talking about combining the bond. Let's get back to this. How much, if we did it separately, how much extra, if we did it twice, if we want to move forward with the jail? Because we've still got a lot of data to put together on this gas situation.
Mr. Chairman, one thing you can look at, and I know that the city has probably done an extensive search as far as available funding, USDA, MGAG, et cetera. I know they have a lot of low-interest loans themselves, and they might even be cheaper than the bond, because I don't think there's an initial upfront cost.
Municipal Gas Authority has a lease purchase agreement, I think, and also GMA has a
So
lease purchase.
I'm concerned about these all of a sudden being tied together tonight with this.
Well, let's just don't get too concerned, because it was just a thought of trying to find ways to get a jail that we got to have.
All right, Mayor?
Well, it was just that we talked about this back in November.
Right.
And we've come to several times about SPLOST, and shall we putting this potential bond in a package for the SPLOST in the future, we'd like to get in on it too. That's why I've sort of brought to the table today, is because we've asked multiple times, if we're going to invest in the county You know, in the past, the taxpayers of Royston have had to back it. We pay two taxes. We pay a county tax too, and we pay a city tax. And we come here and ask again for SPLOST money way in advance because we're investing in the county in a risky venture for us. We like the county taxpayers to have some of the exposure as well. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Mayor. What was that figure?
All right, so if you went with if you did a standalone gas deal, and this is ballpark, okay? If you wanted a 15-year amortization, we'd have to go to we'd have to do a public offering. It would cost you an additional $75,000. If you would go to a 10-year amortization, we would recommend that you get a bank loan, and so that would be an additional $30,000. So
You said yes. How about the jail?
Jail's gonna cost us $110,000.
What was the bond, total bond, 110,000?
yeah, that was a cost issue.
So it'd be about the same, just twice.
No, it would be about 70. An additional, it would be due 70 to do the standalone deal. If you wanted a 15-year amortization, because we have to do a public offering. But if you were willing to do a 10-year amortization on the gas deal, then we would do a bank loan and would save some cost of issuance.
Would that make the jail bond issuance cheaper by pulling out the $1 million for the?
No. That's why
That
that
was-
was brought on there to try to.
Yeah, no, here, let me set the stage a little bit, because I was the one that basically said, because you're gonna have to pay the professionals, is there anything, when we were at the meeting, I said, is there anything else that you guys are discussing, financing in the near future that we could add on to this to save the county money? So that's how this discussion came up. We always do that, because, you know what I mean? You don't want to, I'd love to be paid twice, but it's not fair to you guys. So we always, when we work with our clients, we say, get together your whole wish list and put everything in there. And so that's what Mr. Strickland said on the way out of the meeting was, well, we've been tossing around this gas idea. Just for the meeting, could you show us what it would look like both ways? So, and then we also talked about refinancing the water and sewer debt at the same time. Again, for the same reason, if you're going to pay cost of issuance, do everything at one time. So, that's where we are, you know.
Well, I go back to the point, there's an initial very high cost with bonding. And if our ultimate goal is to retire this debt, or at least put it forth to the citizens, that we're going to retire it with the SPLOST, USDA offers long-term, low-interest rates. So with no closing costs with USDA, with a very similar rate, and I don't have the rates before me, why bond and pay the $110,000 when with a USDA loan with a similar long-term interest rate that ultimately we hope to have the debt retired anyway? Why not go with a conventional bank-type loan or with a USDA loan rather than these upfront bond costs?
Well, the USDA loans, first of all, you have to apply for it, and you have to be eligible, and you have to be awarded the loan. They've got a finite amount of money, and there's parameters on how, when you get the loan and how much.
Okay, if that's the case, let's exclude it. We have done some exploratory work at our local banks, and I'm sure they're willing to work with us. I'm just looking at if the interest rates are very similar, and remember, you're looking at hopefully a short period of time. If there's a 0.5% or even a 1% difference, it's going to take a lot of time with a lower interest rate to offset $110,000. I'm concerned about the initial bonding cost given the other viable alternatives that we have. And even with the bank loan, you're looking at, a 10-year before it adjusts out. I know there is some security with a long-term bond.
But you don't know what the rate's going to be in 10 years.
And I do understand that, but there's a lot of uncertainties that you brought forward tonight. And I understand this is in the exploratory stage, but you're looking at a lot of cost up front with a bond. If you're looking at all things being equal and similar interest rates, and we're hoping that this debt will be retired, I think you're better off looking at conventional banking financing.
I would also make the point that you're going to have legal costs no matter what. whether you do a bank loan.
Okay, are the legal costs factored into the 110,000?
So so a bank loan, and we agree 100% with what you're saying, and that was the major topic in the meeting, is bank loan versus public offering. Because we want to present the option that's the best for the county. And the world sort of divides, if you want to do 10 years or less, then you can get a good bank loan. If you want to go more than 10 years, then the way the world is since 2008 is you've got to do a public offering. But as Andrew pointed out, if you do a bank loan, you still have to do a bond. It's still going to be structured the same way. It's still going to be a revenue bond. The loan's going to be evidenced by a revenue bond issued by the Public Facilities Authority. You're going to have the same intergovernmental contract. You're going to have the same validation costs. You're going to have banks going to have a lawyer. You're going to have to pay me the right to protect and simple opinion. You're going to have the county attorney. You're probably going to have a financial advisor fee. So you are going to save some money with the bank loan. Ballpark, $50,000 in cost of distance you save with a bank loan. But you have a higher interest rate, and you have to amortize the debt over 10 years. And then what we would do in that position, and this is what we discussed with the committee, what we typically do in that position is we do a request for proposal and send it out to national, regional, and always local banks to get the best interest rate for the county.
Well, I just want to be able to explore both options. I want similar documents like this to ultimately be able to look at, inclusive of closing costs, potential interest rates, etc.
I would also say that when we were talking about the different length, because we look at a 5-year amortization, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25. And in the committee, at least, 15 was the route that was brought today, because it stretched out the payments. So that if sales tax didn't pass, you could grow into the debt easier than, say, if we're all doing 5 years, then you really have a gun against your head. And so that was the reason for, it's this balancing act of, what are payments, the longer you go out, the lower your payments are going to be.
Understand,
the
but
shorter, it's a blend.
You've done that here with this interest only to start with. That's the same principle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, all those options were discussed by the committee, so I don't want you to think that the committee
Kind of
looked
dig
at
up
3-year, 5-year, 7-year,
we've already covered the meeting.
15
I'm
years.
sorry, I'm
20
there and just
25, I mean, we covered ad nauseum all these options. This wasn't like, this is the only option, take it or leave it. We did 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, bank loan, non-bank loan, option to prepay, not option to prepay. And so mixing it all together, just
there again, the only thing, this is all that's been brought, I don't know what's been discussed, this is what's been brought forth tonight, and it appears that, this is being the only viable option. I just think there's others.
Absolutely, there's a world of options, again, but that's what the committee's recommendation is. And just to make a couple points of clarification so you guys understand what the committee recommended. And I don't care, I'm indifferent, believe me. But what the committee, again, the committee recommended this 15-year amortization so that the payment was small, low, in case, the worst case scenario, you had to rely on a millage increase. And so that the millage, the impact to the voters, the taxpayers, would be as small as possible. They also stretched it out to 15 years and suggested that you build in an optional call, so if you're fortunate enough to have sales tax proceeds come in, then you pay it off and a lot of this interest would go away. So, again, you're absolutely correct. And you can see every option that they looked at.
Well, what is the minimal duration of which a bond could be callable after issuance?
Well, I'm going to step on Andrew's toes a little bit, but what he and I were suggesting, typically you have a 7 to 10 year lockout where you can't call it. However, we think that we could build in a special optional redemption that said that if the sales tax was successful, you could call the bond at any time at par. We think that would not penalize you in terms of interest rate. But that's what we would do is we would explore you know, a 5-year call, 7-year call, a 10-year call, and then the special optional call.
Well, the one thing you have to remember, just because it passes does not necessarily mean that you have the money collected. It could take, just depending on the percentage allocated in the SPLOST, it could take 3 or 4 years, if it were to pass, in order to collect enough in revenues and proceeds to retire the debt.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we would probably not recommend building in that call if we sat down and looked at the numbers and there was no chance in.
So there, you know, the conventional bank loan, as soon as you collect, you don't have to worry about the call issue, and you're not sitting there paying.
Oh, that's not true. Bank loans don't have
Prepayment penalty?
Some of them, yeah, bank loans, a lot of them now have the same lockout provisions, make-whole provisions. Banks are not necessarily giving you an option to prepay the par at any time. There are, you could put that in your request for proposal when you got bids back, but you typically will pay in terms of an interest rate for greater flexibility in terms of optional return.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I had no idea from the business aspect that was the case.
Let me see if I can sum this up prospectively, because it needs to move. If I understand, we could actually float bonds within 60 days after we get the green light. I would like to see the commission to take this data that the subcommittee has compiled, and for us not to make a recommendation in the next commission meeting, which is coming up first Monday night in April. But this next month, try to put all the information together, all the data together, and see if we can approve what direction we're going to get started on the jail. If we approve this at a May meeting, we were talking about July, August getting started. Is that correct?
Pretty much, 60 days.
What interest rate was this calculated on there?
What interest was that calculated on?
I can send it to you, I don't have it with me.
Can you give me an approximate? I mean, I can go back and recalculate it, but I want to know.
To be honest, I left my file with me, but it's under 4%. I mean,
About 3.5?
sounds about right.
That's a number. I think it's about
What it looks like, just looking at it.
I think it's about 3.5. You just,
Probably a little more than.
I was looking
well,
on
it's under 4.
I was looking on FMS bonds, and that
Yeah, I mean,
everything's pretty much under that was at par. So I would say that would be.
Mayor, go ahead.
I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting the City of Royston come to the work session tonight.
Thank you.
And including us in the conversation. We're working every way we can to help these county farmers reduce their energy costs. We'd love to be able to just put in that line anywhere, but we have to look at the whole picture, just like you guys have to. And we're going to continue to work toward helping these farmers.
Great, I appreciate that.
Thank y'all for your attendance and willingness to work with us to better the county.
Appreciate y'all.
do you think while y'all are here, y'all and the gas committee might could get together to set up a time today to y'all could start looking at things sometime in April?
I'll
I
defer
mean,
that
since
to
it had
We
since
can have
November.
a meeting with my gas committee, which would be Mr. Thurman, Mr. Strickland, and the mayor. And we can do that one day next week if they have time, and
I think that'd be
then
nice.
after we meet, then we can be glad to meet with your committee.
That's great. We'll count on Mr. Phillips after y'all have a week or so to get y'all together to county, Royston, conglomeration.
If you ever want us to come to a meeting,
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Matt.
So what numbers do you want in to run for you guys?
I'm sorry.
What numbers do you want to see all the number runs that the subcommittee looked at?
Oh, I'd love it. Absolutely. If you can electronically.
well, and I think you should actually have copies of those numbers.
Yeah,
In your desk. I made a copy of them actually. Do you have anything like that?
No, sir. I don't have anything. So.
It wasn't on email.
No, I never get an email with that. I say all that.
Is this what you're talking about?
I probably
That'd be great if you wouldn't mind. I'd rather have it electronically.
Or you just send it to him?
We ran, what were we running?
Ran 5, 7,
5, 7, 10,
10, 15, 20, 25?
anything else you can see other than 5, 7, 10, and 15?
Just whatever y'all discuss.
Just- Yeah, and then I think we were looking at, maybe didn't we have one of the banks that maybe was it 2.8 for amortized over 15 years, where you had to redo it at 10 years? And then what we're looking at is that we would have had maybe somewhere, if it was $1 million, we would still owe about $400,000 on that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that to you.
So then we, whatever, we bid 400,000, if it was per million, we'll go bid.
Pros and cons, about 20-year bond.
15 just looked more appealing instead of going out that far as paying more back in that extra 5 years. Because we're looking at hopefully paying things off really with somewhere probably maybe the 10 to 12, 13 years, or over 10 years, less than 15 is what we're really looking with everything to have it, but it just paid off.
You know, we got in a tight, I was looking at about $40,000 a year different in the 20 we get and have our payments lower if we got in a tight, but if we could pay it off, you know. in
We got the
some
20,
amount.
we'll send that to you.
Yeah,
We just chose the 15.
I would rather go with the 15 because somewhere between 10 and 15, if the trends continue, somebody else is going to be sitting here looking at this very same scenario again, and I would hate for them to inherit indebtedness for the current expansion with them.
But what I'm saying with the 20, you're gonna have lower payments if you get in a tight, if SPOS does not pass, if things don't work out that way, you're gonna have a lower payment.
Paybacks, higher interest rate too, isn't it? The longer that
Well, that's what
you
I'm asking.
Yeah, over time, the
Right.
longer you pay.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking.
The more you pay total, if you didn't pay it
Yeah,
off early.
right.
But no, it matters the
Annual
interest
payments are
rate too.
less.
Your interest rate
Yeah.
for having
It's
money
better.
tied up because of the uncertainty or certainty.
Your interest rate goes up. The longer you
Correct.
go,
The
the longer you go on
15
maturity, the higher the rate is.
The 15 year was the better deal between all of them.
Yeah, because we don't have.
That is what I was.
And just so when you guys are thinking about this being with broad brush, but as a general rule, banks will give you a fixed rate for 10 years or less. So a bank loan, if you want to lock in a fixed rate and do a bank loan, it's going to be your 3, 5, 7, 10-year amortization.
And we looked at, in all honesty, the interest rates are 1% or more or less than what the bonding rates are.
But then you don't know what it's going to be.
I'm sure.
That's the whole thing.
You mean the 10-year rate as opposed to because the interest rate on a publicly offered bond yield is always going to be lower than the bank rate. It's just you're paying more cost of issuance to get that rate. But we've had great success, bidding stuff out to banks. Like I said, we do that all the time. Either approach is fine. We would bid it to national, regional, and of course all your local banks to get you the lowest possible interest rate. But your payment's going to be higher in case the other stuff doesn't work out. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much for your patience and clarification on these issues.
Really appreciate that. I know the sheriff's disappointed Monday night. I don't think we've got all our ducks in the road to make a green light for you, but I'm pushing for the deadline to be at a work session on 29th of April for us to give the green light or red light. And I don't think we have any choice but the green light. So
Hope the red light's out there.
let's look at that on the 29th of April. Gentlemen, we appreciate this information tonight. Anyone else got any discussion?
I'm going to let Andrew be the witness for it, just to make sure that he's got them.
Stand adjourned.